Hi, I'm Dean Sage.
And I'm Jack Kerbin.
And this is Show Me Your Deck,
a podcast where we explore the intersections of oracles and chakras,
using our original decks to create new insights. Episode 49.
Here we are. It's my number, baby.
It's your number.
It's my number, baby. It took us long enough to get there. We had to do the first 48 episodes first.
Yes. Well, we have gotten there. We've mastered it. Mine's 72. So I don't know. We don't really have anything special planned for 49. We're not going to do like a clips show or greatest highlights or anything like that.
Well, there's still time. I'm kidding. I just love the number 49.
We've gotten the root and crown chakras so much in the first 49 episodes, and we've had like the obelisk 7 times or something.
enough to make the points. Like, okay.
And we've had like the aurora borealis. It's just, I find it interesting that our and it's our dice roll. Like, it's not even like me. I could kind of see okay, maybe I'm pulling in intuitively, but I'm all my energy is in it. So then it's really resonating with me and not necessarily with more universal messages, but I'm not controlling it. The dice is controlling it.
Right.
It's purely, unless you have loaded dice.
I hope not.
I mean, you didn't pay for loaded dice.
No, I didn't. Dice are expensive.
Mm-hmm. The people that hoard them are called dice goblins. I love it.
Dice goblins.
Yes.
I have some really pretty ones. Oh my God. They're made out of this iridescent glass with a frosted surface, and they shimmer all these different colors. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. I don't use those for this because you can't see them anyway, but oh my God, they're pretty. And obviously they didn't make a 50-sided one. So for my purposes, it would be an incomplete set, but otherwise it's got, 4-sided, 5, 10, anything you think of, 20, 12, all that stuff.
They've tried to rethink, because the D4 is a really hard dice to roll, as you know.
Well, look what they did on this one. You can't see it in Dreamland, but I'm showing Dean. They took the pyramid and sawed off the points so it rolls better.
Ah.
Can you see that when I hold it up to the camera?
I can see that. Yeah. It's so it's like a hexagon now.
Yeah. So otherwise the pyramid gets stuck on its own tips.
Yeah. So the original D4, the pyramid die is very hard to roll. So there's people that made them into cylinders that you kind of cast out, and they just roll until they get to a number. With
a normal 4-side, you get 1, 2, 3, or 2, 3, 4, whatever combination on each side, and then whichever one's pointing up is, the one you rolled. This one, they saw off the tips and they put the number only on the tip. So there's no question about what has been rolled.
What has been rolled. Gotcha.
And so it is just it still doesn't roll as well as something with more faces, but it definitely helps. It doesn't just land and stick like it's got a magnet holding it in place.
Yeah. So there's been some interesting ones. I actually, when I was DMing, I had Obsidian, which we both use. We're both lovers of Obsidian. If you don't know what Obsidian is, it's a database, it's a notes archive, and it's a scriptable workspace. So people have created all sorts of plugins that do amazing things, and one of the plugins is a dice roller. So I would actually program in, and then with that I could program in a D3, which doesn't exist.
No.
And I can then click it, and it generates rolls. So, and then that works with another one which controls battle. So I put in all of the monsters' stats, and then I press battle, and it rolls all the initial die for you. And then if you are looking at the monster's card, you can click on their attack feature, and it rolls the dice for you. So you get an attack roll and a defense roll and all those kind of things.
That's marvelous.
Yes. And it does all the math for you. It was actually really fun because I didn't have to spend time thinking about all the mechanics. I could just focus on the game. And it was really, really lovely and interesting.
Speeds up the play considerably.
It's all based in Obsidian, which is just, if you are a creative, I encourage you to take a look at it. It is overwhelming at first. Would you agree?
Yeah, and that's why I don't add any of the stuff you're talking about. The only update, or not even update, the only what would you call it? What I'm sleepy, I can't remember words. The only customization I've done is to make it color coded so that different headlines like H1, H2, H3, they have different colors. If something is italicized, it's yellow. If something's plain text, it's blue. So you can find visually, based on color, the information that you're looking for. So I've got different hierarchies in my notes, and those color codes allow me to find stuff easily. Like it goes through pink, yellow, blue, white, green, purple, and I don't think you can assign. Well, I don't know how to assign the colors, but it comes with.
You can, but it requires style sheets and all sorts of.
I don't care about that. I'm just trying to write a novel. That's complicated enough. I used it to keep track of my character development in the first draft of the novel, and I don't know. I don't remember that did I write a lot of the scenes in it, or just the.
You wrote a lot of your sketches in it.
Yeah, I don't know that I wrote the narrative. I know that I wrote the character sketches, and you can create links in between different files. So if
that's
you
the power of it.
Yes,
the database links.
Check on something and make sure. Well, I said he's got blue eyes here. Did I say that somewhere else? And you can go through and do a keyword search. Oh, you can do keyword searches and anything, but this is particularly powerful because of the way it jumps across folders. And
you do bracket, and then a word, a string of words, whatever that is. And then if you haven't created that page before, you can click the link that's just been created, and it'll make a brand new page with that title. So like you could go Cristiano, so you could do bracket Cristiano, and then if Cristiano's page exists, cool, it links to it. If it doesn't, you can click on it, and now Cristiano's page is there. So you could do like a character biography details, and then there's a cool plugin which is a hover note. So now when you hover over your links, it pops up a little tiny version of your page, and you can scroll through it and answer the question: does Cristiano have blue eyes?
Well, also, if you decide you want to rename Cristiano, you can change his name in one place and it updates it everywhere.
It does. It's amazing.
So that all your searches remain functional and nothing gets broken.
And it's very nice because when you do get a character and then you go, oh crap, I need to rename this character. If you've linked them every time you've used them, it'll update all of them. And then actually it goes through and it says, hey, this looks like it should be a link. Do you want to make it a link? It's got, it's great. It does so much.
Well, and that's actually interesting because I had to rename Cristiano. No, I didn't. I had to rename Angelo. I renamed Angelo Celestino. So I didn't have to go back and do that everywhere.
It's nice. Yeah.
It's nice. And you don't have to do a control find to do it. It just does it.
And that's kind of the database side of it. So it does keep things like a database, and then you can do actually now natively database views. So if you're a fan of Notion, it looks a lot more like Notion in some ways now for some people, if that's what you like. If that's what you like. I don't like Notion. I like Obsidian. Plus it's completely local. That's, I think, the most powerful thing to me is it's completely local. You can put it on a cloud drive, but it doesn't require you to subscribe anywhere or put your data in someone else's cloud to be mined or used by them for whatever purposes they want to use it for. It's all yours. All your data is yours.
Yep. I keep my Obsidian folder in iCloud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
and they have not paid for all this lovely banter, so I'm going to suggest that we move on because if they want us to say more, they need to give us some coins. So thank you, Obsidian, for being so helpful. Bye.
Well, yes, it's the root of our creativity. But let's roll and find out what our message is for today.
Okay, and Obsidian is not sponsoring this dice roll. Okay, hold on. Oh, it's number 2.
Ooh,
straight to the literal professions today.
All right.
Number 24.
Ooh, okay.
Right in the middle. So I'm guessing it'll be an Anahata, maybe? 24. Yep. All right. This is wood, green, heart. Anahata is I love and how is influenced by water. I see, ajna, the third eye. So how I love, or how you make connections, how that's influenced by the way you perceive the world and what you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The profession is, I profess that I love learning, especially from the wisdom of others. I profess that I love learning, especially from the wisdom of others.
We have had this before. I do remember this, but this is a great number 49, to be honest.
Yeah, and this is a nice way to create context for the whole reading. So whatever reminders come forward will come back to this notion that the process of learning is not something you have to do by yourself. So whatever reminders come up later in this reading, remember, whatever that lesson is, you do not have to do it by yourself.
I like that. I like the love part of this. I like the love part of this a lot. So for you, heart chakra. So for me, for heart chakra, it's love is there, but to me, it is grief and joy. That's sort of all of my chakras have a dichotomy to them. And mine for the heart chakra is grief and joy. And I feel that love and peace are kind of, they go together. Like loving your life is being at peace with your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious, like, where does love come in for you? Like, how do you view love in terms of your chakral system, in terms of your heart?
The elemental for love in my system is wood. And if you look at the way roots delve the soil, the way vines twist around other objects, even other plants, the way that branches overlap with each other, I'm looking at the way in which love is an exchange and the way in which it is an interconnection. And it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic love. It doesn't have to be sexual love. It doesn't have to be any kind of love that we think of in, the incredibly short-sighted use of love in English. Mm-hmm. There are other languages with all these different ways to express the concept of love. This love is the kind that is an umbrella term. But what they all have in common is the way energy is being shared between people. So even if it's love of country or love of neighbor or love of pet or love of knowledge, it's the idea that something is being exchanged and it's being done from a place of hopefully gratitude, but certainly not destruction.
I love the community thing here because trees, we now know, right? We've learned form a community, and you can have there are specific examples where a grove is one organism, and I'm not talking about just those times, but like there are plants talk, like we know this, they communicate in various ways, and they have frequencies that they communicate at, but they also have pheromones and other released things and ways of talking back and forth between, some through roots, some through air. There's
if one gets attacked by a pest, they will release that pheromone to let the other trees nearby know that the pest is present, and then those trees will then put out whatever the noxious substance is that keeps the pests at bay. So, is it birch trees, or it can look like a forest? It's like square miles, and it's all one root system. It's all one organism that happens to have lots of stems sticking out like trees, but it's all just one big organism.
Yeah, I love the idea of wood, trees, and love in this case. I was talking to our good friend Lisa yesterday, and I was talking about jealousy. And, I sort of hate how monogamy is just the assumed default for everyone. That is just like, no, I think that like monogamy, I think relationships like consent need active communication. So I don't think you should basically be assumed to follow some rules that you haven't agreed to. That's just my take on it. And I love the idea of love being this community of communication, because it does take, love does take communication. It does take conscious action. It's not passive like I think a lot of romance tells us that it is.
No, and it may not always be symmetrical, but it is still some kind of an exchange. And it can become unhealthy. It can become choking. It can become blighted. It can become all sorts of stuff, but that's not when it's healthy.
And then you have the kudzu where you need the goats. I just saw that video before we started recording.
Yeah.
That's so lovely.
Yes,
they unload the goats.
The kudzu. Yeah.
And
nothing else will get rid of the kudzu, but the goats love it.
They love it. And
there are
they
people who have businesses renting out their goats to.
No, that's what I was watching. Yeah. This person makes videos of their goats, and like 24 hours, they completely clear land. And I mean, goats were always considered bad because of that, because they would clear land too much. And now they're like, this is better than any other removal technique that we can have.
Yeah,
like,
you don't have to worry about fire or chemicals or poisons or anything. You just let the goats out. But like when I was growing up on the farm, I asked my grandma if we could have goats, and she just about lost her mind. She was like, absolutely not. I was like, why? It's like they rip everything up by the roots. I was like, well, that's good to know.
Everything has its place.
Everything does have its place. And they brought kudzu over here during the Dust Bowl to try to preserve the soil so it wouldn't get eroded by, being exposed to all the air and drought. And then the kudzu just ate the South.
Yes. I
remember growing up, it's not as bad now as far as I can tell, but I remember growing up, you would just be driving down the highway and there'd be miles and miles and miles of just kudzu and dead trees underneath. Crazy. Which
is a good metaphor. Obviously, we talked about vines, and vines tend to be the negative. I think
they coil around and they strangle and choke.
Yeah, they eventually kill that which they cling to.
Mm-hmm. It's an apt metaphor. Yeah, for sure. But in this instance, with this reminder, when you make that connection with somebody and there is trust and respect, then the knowledge can flow back and forth, and then you can make discoveries so much more quickly than if you have to live and research everything yourself. You can just have these conversations or read these papers or watch these shows or go to this class, whatever. And then people will just give you what you need as long as you're open to receiving it, which is challenging for me as a college professor and a high school teacher, because a lot of times people just simply do not want to receive.
Yeah, no. And I do like this, framework for the work today, because it talks about the love of learning, and that's something that we just don't see very often, because change is hard. Mm-hmm. Changing your mind is very hard.
Oh yeah.
Being open to new information that challenges you or overturns something or makes you feel bad is hard. And
go ahead and make a note for me to talk about this in the extended portion.
Okay. Love of learning and being open.
Love of learning and being open to change despite it being painful. We'll need to discuss that.
Okay.
Behind the paywall where you have to give us $1.
Yes.
Or whatever it is. I don't even know what the price is listed for this.
I think it's $5 a month.
$5 per month.
So this is a good framework, and there's an active piece to all of this. There's you have the third eye, so there's opening of connection with others and the interchange, the inner flow of that kind of energy. And I do think I have a hard time placing love. Like you've got the second chakra, which is emotions, and a lot of people would say love is an emotion, but I don't think it is. And we associate it with the heart chakra, and the heart chakra isn't emotions per se, but a lot of times we talk about like, I feel it in my heart, or my heart's telling me, so we bodily place things. But I always feel when someone says, oh, my heart's telling me something, I always hear my emotions and my gut are leading me somewhere. And I'm just placing it in the heart because I think that sounds better.
Well, when I was deciding which mantras to adapt for the system, I specifically went with I love, because I connect as 2 syllables and I didn't want that. I wanted them all to be 1 syllable mantras. And when I started thinking about, well, what are all the qualities going on here? And as I said, if you have a broader umbrella of concepts for love, then everything that I kept coming back through, it could boil down to something even simpler than connect. Trying to get to that 1 syllable. It's like, if I'm going to boil it down to 1 syllable, here it is. I love. But you can love in so many ways.
I think that's very much forgotten, especially like, I mean, I love people, and people like to read romance and romantasy. They just really do. And it's not just women. Like people like, even though men aren't supposed to, like, it's books are easy because it's in secret. Like nobody knows that you went to the romance movie and you didn't have your girlfriend with you. Oh my God. And but people like it. People like happy endings. People like connection and fatedness and all that kind of stuff. Like they just eat it up.
Yeah, well, it's easier than being, walking around the world.
But
it's a nice dream. It's fun.
There is, the flip side, which is that there's so many different ways to connect. And I didn't know that about your system. That's nice to know that I love was originally the idea was connection, and that makes so much sense because like we talked about, connection. Yeah. There's just something about there being other kinds of love, and your life is not rich, I feel, unless you have those other kinds of love. And I think also, a lot of people equate sex with love. And if that's the only love that you have in a relationship, like, I just don't think that's a relationship that lasts.
Well, just to make a quick point about I love in this system, it starts with, I profess that I love my life and that the world is a better place with me in it. I profess that I love experiencing a wide variety of perspectives. I profess that I love learning, especially from the wisdom of others. I profess that I love a wide variety of people and the richness their diversity adds to the world. I profess that I love and appreciate those who help me to remain stable. I profess that I love all my experiences because they have made me stronger, and I profess that I love to give and receive thriving, generous energy. So none of them are about romance.
No.
All of them are about connecting in some way with people by way of the intersecting chakra.
I think love supersedes romance in a way. I think romance is a subset of emotion. And I think there's a lot of emotions that go into romance. And
sure, of course. But I would put them down in the second chakra.
I would as well. Yeah, exactly. Everything that we say is love or being in love. Let's talk about in love. Everything we say is about being in love. I don't place in the heart. I just don't. It's second chakral energy.
Well, for example, I like when people look at the Sacred Heart, the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It's like, that's not an I'm in love with you kind of heart. That's I have compassion for you. I include you in my life. I hope that you will be well. I hope you're healthy and happy kind of a heart. And that's generous, and that's connection. That's whatever religious symbol you want to think of, but that's the one that came to mind because, I grew up in a Judeo-Christian tradition. But the Sacred Heart is not Jesus being in love with you. He loves you. He respects you if you believe in that system, but he's not in love with you.
There's loss of words when we went to English. Like Greek has other concepts, like the philo and philia. The pretext is not the word. What's the prefix? There we go. Suffix, prefix, and suffix. They have the prefix and suffix love, and then you would add it to other things. So philosophia, love of learning.
Philosophy. Yeah, and you got Philadelphia.
Yep. Philadelphia is brotherly love of brothers, brotherly love. So androphilia, love of men. Like you have different ways of phrasing things because you have these words, this love that you could attach. And the Bible people love to have, like, there's like I think 7 kinds of love or something in the Bible. And I have forgotten these things because I have not used them in my brain for over 20 years, so it has gone away. But the idea was that there was all these different kinds of love, and even Christianity had such a hard time in English talking about it because there's such a capitalized way of thinking about love in our culture.
It becomes very reductive.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting, going forward into the reading to see what the follow-up reminders are within the context of learning from other people and really truly being absorbed in the process of learning. You don't have to necessarily love them or love their ideas, but you can love the process of absorbing what that is and how it changes the way you see the world.
It's like being open to rain.
Mm-hmm.
It's just being open to the world connection that you have.
Yep.
I'm gonna pull now. Kind of a decent bit of energy from this card. Oh, it's flying away. Interesting. You're going to love this. It's the Two of Storms. So this is the Two of Swords in the tarot. Blown two different ways, you seek direction. Blown two different ways, you seek direction.
So that is very interesting, because if you are confused, if you are lost, if you are doubting, this is the type of situation specifically where learning from somebody else can help you figure out which way to go. If it has to be dichotomous and you have to pick one or the other and you can't figure it out, well, like we just said, you don't have to figure it out by yourself. You can learn from other people.
Well, and it's interesting because the heart chakra. So this is by the way, this is also the heart chakra in my system. So storms are the heart chakra.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So we've got heart on heart right now, heart, third eye. But the heart to me is air, which I know is not the same for you. But it's interesting because it flows so nicely with what we've been talking about. Like the trees are grounded and yet they reach tall. Like they're kind of their own obelisk, you know, if we're talking about it that way. Like they reach far into the sky, right? They're towering, especially the old trees. Oh my gosh, the old trees would have been amazing to see. The primordial forests would have just been incredible.
Yeah.
Just incredible. And the idea here is that in mine, the Swords of the Storms, the heart is about these highs and these lows that you go through. And this one is really saying, look, you've got two different winds that you could try to mount, right? Like a bird, you could try to use their wind to lift you up. It's not bad things, right? They're just, you know, you've got two things, two swords, two storms that you're trying to move between. And you have to you have to take them in. You have to receive that wind. Just like your card's talking about, you have to receive the learning. So I think this is saying, you know, sometimes it feels like you're being attacked from both sides, right? Or you know, it feels like you're being blown so you're being pushed, or, you know, life is pulling you or shoving you or something. And that kind of like, panicky moment is kind of where this card comes from, is you've got this moment of, but it's okay, right? Because air is very disconnected from earth. So when you're going through the storms, it can feel very hard to ground yourself. That's really the challenge of the Suit of Storms for my deck, is the Celestials. They go on their journey. This is hard because you're leaving the ground for the first time. Like you're above it, you're soaring, you're falling, you know, you're catching. It's this up and down and left and right, and you at first don't know how to do it. Like you don't know how to ride the wind, but once you learn it, it's like, oh, okay. Like there's firmness in the air, there's solidness in the air, there's support in the air.
It's interesting because we're keeping it simple. Life isn't this simple usually, but let's just keep it simple. Let's say, for the sake of this image, you've got two directions. You have a few options here. You can look for people who have been in a similar situation and how they've navigated being in between the two. Or you could go talk to people who specialize in A and then people who specialize in B and come up with new solutions that lie somewhere in between. Or, you know, there's options here. There's no one way to solve most problems. And you will learn about more of the possible solutions with other people involved. Mm-hmm. It might be somebody who involves the entire system as a whole.
I wrote in my book, for all the things we can control, there are 10 things we cannot. The planet hurls around the sun, which itself is being drawn around the galaxy. Massive forces act upon us from galactic distances. You are small. You cannot affect much outside of a small sphere. And that is exactly the point. No matter how much you try to shape the future, some of it will happen whether you wish it to or not. You don't make choices as often as you think. You choose how you will face the steady stream of events that you cannot control. You choose whether you will allow yourself to leave the ground and ride the winds, or whether you will let the winds batter you against the rocks because you try so hard to choose.
Very nice. This reminds me of, it's a realization I had when I was still a high school teacher, way, many moons ago. I think I came up with this concept, and it's probably not original to me, so I'm not trying to act like it is, but I think I may have reinvented a wheel here. And this would have been like 2003, I guess. And I'd had a really bad day at school. And it occurred to me that if the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, and if the Earth is moving through space at 10,000 miles an hour, and the sun is going 100,000 miles per minute or whatever it is around the center of the galaxy, that by the time you can realize something is bothering you, it's already 1,000,000 miles away. Mm-hmm. And that's difficult because we carry so much with us, but quite literally, you are not in the same place.
Well, I like the idea of choice and response, right? That we were just talking about, like you talked about, the reaction time 1,000,000 miles away. You're in so little control, right, of what's going on, that just because, like going back to our framework card, just because you're receiving from outside of you doesn't mean you have to, change something for, like you can just receive information. Like it's just information. You can receive it. You don't have to immediately do something with it. It's like hot takes, right? You can get news and you do not have to have a take on it immediately. You can let it percolate, right? You can bring it in, you can let it sit, you can roll it around, you can think about it, you can compare it to the other things that you're being told, you can think your way through it. And I think for me, this idea of pieces in the middle of joy and grief, pieces in the middle of things, like you are, I shouldn't say you can, it's not that you can be, you are at peace when new things don't, move you to that degree, when new information doesn't, feel like an attack. If it's just new information. It's just come in, and that's okay. And it might contradict everything that you know, and that's okay. Like you don't have to jump on it. And I think that's why the Two of Storms came up here, is you don't have to immediately respond to everything. And like you said, the once you've got it, it's 1,000,000 miles away now.
Right.
You have distance to look at it.
And once you realize that something has shaken you, it's human. It's perfectly valid. It's fine to be afraid of that and to feel pain over that and to mourn it. So you're not bad for being responsive, but how do you grow and change as a result? And if you don't, then you're just setting yourself up for disappointment again later. So you have to be changeable.
Mutable. And I think that's where peace is. Like I go back to it again and again, because it's something that I read that was monumental, and at the same time is very hard to accomplish. And that's that if you want to always be happy, then you realize that you're exactly where you need to be right now.
Yeah.
And that's really hard, because sometimes where you need to be right now is not a quote unquote happy place.
No, it may not be comfortable, and it may not be forgiving, and it may not be cozy, and it may not be woo woo, but if it's where you need to be, then.
And that's why I always hate the gospel of prosperity and the idea of manifestation, because some people are where they are and there's nothing they can do to manifest them out of it.
No. And there's no fault for their behavior that put them there in the first place.
No. So yeah, I guess if you find yourself right now in that situation, forgive yourself, seek the peace, feel the rain, right? You don't have to respond to the rain. Just feel it. Just let it fall down on you. Let the storm, send you the wind, and you'll get there. So you'll find a way forward. I need another card though. I need to see where we're going.
Deck number 1.
Okay.
We're going to go sassy.
Sassy time. That 50-sided die loves to travel. I watch you
You watch my face do this.
Yeah, you go from one side of the screen to the other side of the screen.
37. Well, more water. Okay, so this is blue, water, third eye, ajna, IC, and how is influenced by purple, crown, sahasrara, ether, I know. So how I see is influenced by I know, which would effectively be the way you see the world, the way you understand the world, and how that is influenced by your sense of purpose or sense of morality or sense of context in the broader universe.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Ready.
You need a bubble bath. Don't argue with me. Run warm water. Dissolve crusty vibes. You need a bubble bath. Don't argue with me. Run warm water. Dissolve crusty vibes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we talked about letting the rain fall on you, and here you go, bubble bath.
I know, right?
Bubble bath. Just get in there. I had a really bad allergic reaction to a COVID shot. I think it was the COVID shot. I developed hives everywhere, but it happened like the day or two after, like it wasn't right away. And I'm at work and I'm traveling. I'm literally traveling with my boss, and the hives are starting to form.
Oh no!
And I'm just like, growing increasingly uncomfortable. And I'm like, and then I start to see it on my hands, because it was underneath my shirt. And I came to realize afterward that it was, for some reason, it was the COVID shot triggered some allergic reaction to the chemicals in the dry cleaning.
Oh.
So I don't know how those two are connected. Maybe they're completely unconnected, but they happened in close proximity. So in my brain, of course, correlation and causation. And I was at the dinner table, like we were having dinner, and I'm just like, I was getting worse and worse and worse. And I just kind of had to be like, I'm so sorry, but I need to cut this short. I'm having an allergic reaction. And I do, and so we go home and we do the Epsom bath, and I just get in, and that's to me, that's the last time I had like a bubble bath. It wasn't a bubble bath, but it's the last time I got in a tub and submerged myself, and it was very nice for what it needed to be. Good. So to me, that's I was definitely dissolving some crusty vibes.
Definitely dissolving some crusty vibes
with that. So that's where my head went with the image, but that's just because of the last time I did a bath. Do you do baths? Do you do bubble baths?
I used to do them all the time. I haven't done them recently. There's all sorts of stuff I used to do for self-care that I don't do anymore.
That's telling.
It is. It really is. So here, the way you perceive the world, the way you learn what you know, and how that is influenced by your sense of morality or your sense of purpose in life. I think, okay, I feel in this moment that what it's reminding me is that my beliefs and the way I see the world, they cannot become fixed. If I discover something new in my sense of purpose or my sense of morality, it's okay for that to allow me to reframe or reconsider and restudy and re-understand what it is I think I know.
We said mutable earlier.
I think you have to be careful to not change facts to fit your beliefs, though. I don't think it's reminding us that we should consider reforming information specifically to gratify our sense of, spirituality. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the sense of spirituality can give new context and help you understand differently, but I don't know that should necessarily reshape everything. A fact is a fact. The way you understand it might change.
I have a good example of this. So we were driving down the road, my spouse and I, and the car in front of us is kind of just not driving well. And I kind of peer through the darkened back window, and the guy's got his phone in his hand, and he's animatedly talking to it. And I was like, how lazy do you have to be in this day and age to not have a hands-free device set up, or even just a holder for your phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my spouse had an immediately negative reaction to the word lazy and started defending him. I'm like, he's driving stupidly. Like, why are you defending him?
Mm-hmm.
And it was because I used the word lazy. And what it was is I saw this happening and I interpreted it in my way, which
Mm-hmm.
was that this is a lazy person that just hasn't taken the time. We're one of the states that rolled out. Well, not we. The one we were in. It's one of the ones that rolled out the no touch rule, where you literally cannot touch your phone while you're driving.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just going to town. I mean, it's not even like he's sneaking it in or something. It's fully in plain view that he is holding his phone and talking. And I just found it interesting because that's how I interpret it. I'm like, you just have to be a lazy person not to have adapted to the world that you are in. And my spouse is like, well, not all cars have hands-free and they don't always work. And they're coming up with all these excuses as to why this person may not have a hands-free setup. And I still feel like this was not a good choice by this person. I think this person's making very bad choices, dangerous choices, even. But it caused me to kind of be like, okay, well, yeah, I did make a judgment, right? I did take the facts and come to a conclusion, and it could be wrong, right? It could be incorrect.
I hear and I acknowledge what you're expressing in this story, and I would offer that perhaps the word lazy is inaccurate, but defending them is inaccurate as well. They were wrong. They were unsafe. And okay, so perhaps lazy is the word that jumped into your mind and it wasn't necessarily lazy. Okay, fine. But it doesn't matter why they're doing it. What they're doing is unsafe. And I don't know that it's judgmental on your part. It's judicious to want to get away from a person who's driving that way. I think that sometimes judgmental is used in place of judicious and people aren't considering how they're different. So, okay, whether he was lazy or not doesn't change the fact that he was dangerous.
Right. And we both agreed on that. But my point with the story is that there was facts in front of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there were different conclusions that could have been made. And I think that that's kind of what I'm getting from the reading is in this case, my sense of justice and what is right influenced how I saw the situation. My spouse reminded me that there could be other circumstances going on. It didn't change the fact that this is not a good moment. This driver was in error, right? This driver was wrong. But it does cause you to kind of sit for a minute and, how are you generating your facts, right? How are you generating your understanding?
Okay,
And
got it. I understand. Yeah.
Does something that is, more reactive in you, right? I reacted, is it, where are your gut motions in things, and how can you let what we talked about, the mutability, right? How can you let the things that are coming into you, the I see, how are you letting them influence the I know?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of our I know is very guttural at times. We're not truly rational creatures like we claim to be. There are definitely times where we're rational, but there's a lot of times where we're reactive.
Yes, and I think we should take a moment to clarify what I know here is, and how it's distinguished from I see in this system. So for me, the I know as it's connected to the crown chakra, and given that, source of connection out into the broader universe, this is the I know that survives beyond any seeing, and is, I suppose, a form of faith. The I know that, okay, so third eye, knowledge, how you see the world. I know that there is a black hole at the center of our galaxy. I know that. I don't need to see it, but I know it. But the I know that's happening at the crown chakra is, I know that when I ascend to glory, that energy will also continue swirling around that black hole. But that's what I know. And it doesn't matter what you try to tell me otherwise. I don't believe that I will keep my form as you recognize Jack. I don't believe I will be that form of me forever and ever. I certainly hope I'm not. How boring would that be? Oh my God, I can barely put up with myself right now. It's like there's 50 billion more years of this? Shit, no, I don't want that. But what I know is that I will continue to exist. I just don't necessarily see how I will take that shape. So the I know here is, this one was a difficult mantra to come up with, because I had put I know right here on the third eye, but then it's like, well, then where does I see go? And I was going back and forth on the mantras for number 6 and number 7, and they finally settled where they did because of issues of philosophy.
Well, I think this is the hard part, is that the third eye is a kind of connection that goes beyond physicality, right? So we go from the throat chakra, which is a very physical chakra, and then we get into the third eye, and the eye is about seeing, but it's about seeing in a way that is different than our physical sensations. It's seeing through, seeing into, seeing things that are not quite with us in a physical sense, but we can gain knowledge. And this is where they cross, right? You can gain information. Like all of our senses give us information, but then you get to the crown chakra, and the crown chakra is about a connection. Like the crown chakra exists above the head. Like it's a thread that goes up and connects you to the universe itself. And it's, of course, the hardest to keep open, to understand, to interact with, because we're so physical, right? It's so contrary to the root chakra, which is very grounded and physical. Like we are a physical being, and our whole experience comes from being physical beings in a physical world. And the third eye and the crown are really saying there's not as much separation as we feel that there is. There's not as much separation as we think that there is. And in Buddhism in particular, opening the third eye and opening your crown chakra, you are losing some of your physicality, some of your separation, in order to be connected with the greater community, the greater world, the greater people. And in Buddhism, it would be, connecting yourself to the energies of others and realizing that you're all one, that we're all one, we're all the same. We're just separated right now. And that's part of the enlightenment journey. And of course, obviously I'm nowhere near enlightenment. So I'm talking about it in terms of what I've read and understand from others who have come closer or who have touched it. And I can't say that I have that experience. And I think that's why these chakras are really hard to interact with, because you really do have to be at like a higher state to, I think, truly understand them. I mean, understand is probably not even the right word for it. It's more of experience.
In the book, okay, I'm understanding now, remembering now why I use this bubble bath imagery for the Sassy deck. The haiku for this is sorrow's drowning thirst, ecstatic dissolution, quench my parched spirit. The profession, I profess that I see that I want to see more. And then we come down to the prose. When water connects to Akasha, the divine nature of knowledge becomes spiritual acceptance. Ooh, okay. When water connects to Akasha, the divine nature of knowledge becomes spiritual acceptance. Something like faith, but not as rigid as dogma. Deeper understanding leads a soul toward the infinite and or divine. And it goes on and on from there. So, okay, I'm understanding better now why this sassy deck is talking about bubble baths and dissolving away crusty vibes. Because in order to see more, you have to get out of your own way. You have to get your own faulty notions and faulty facts and faulty presumptions out of the way so that you can see even further and understand more deeply. And then actually know what's real.
The crusty vibes, I really like that image. I want to come back to that because we all have them. It's I mean, our brain literally becomes plastic. Like our brain, the entire mission of the brain when you're growing up is to find the most effective pathways. That's all it does. It starts with trillions, billions, I don't remember how many. It starts with a lot. And then it carefully trims away until things get faster. So I experienced this so clearly. When I was in school, math was difficult because of dyslexia. So it was the language activity, and languages are hard for dyslexics. Mm-hmm. So I just was slow at it. But then when I started teaching it, I was actually very fast at it. And it was because my brain had found the best pathways. It had adapted itself. So by the time, I was entering my mid-20s, my brain, I was faster. I was just faster at it. It just, my pathways had gotten better. And that's means that it's become more rigid. And this is why as we get older, our thinking becomes more rigid because the pathways are set. But we now know that the brain can redo pathways. It can change. It can affect itself. It's not easiest. It's not what the brain wants to do, but it can do it. And I think that's where this crusty vibes is really hitting me, is you can shake off some of that, rigid thinking that you have when it's crusty. And crusty here is in negative sense. Like sometimes you just kind of hardened in place. And, you got crusty. Just ugh.
So it's interesting that water is connected to IC in the way that we see the world, the way we learn, the way we understand. In the mind and the brain, and you're talking about crusties, so when you're younger, your brain has the consistency of a wet sponge. And as you age, it starts to get quote unquote drier. This is one of those instances where you put a little philosophical water in there to keep your sponge moist. I hate the word moist, but do it anyway. So the way you can do that is, learning languages, doing math problems, all the stuff you see people doing, trying to keep themselves quote unquote sharp. It's keeping their brain soft. And the best ways to do that is learning something complicated, especially from scratch. So whether it's learning a language maybe you're in your 60s, don't care. Learn a new language. It will keep you brighter. It will keep your sponge wet. So it's just an interesting correlation between the symbols of the system and the science on the ground.
Well, and going back to the the intersection here of letting your sight, right, your foresight, your insight, be guided by what you know, right? Know to be true. People say know in your heart, which of course goes back to our other cards with the heart chakra. Yeah. What you know in your heart to be true, which is such an interesting statement. I'd love to look at the etymology of that because that's fascinating. What I know in my heart to be true. It reminds us that we are beings of thought and creativity And yet we are also beings of pillars and foundations. And we talk about core images a lot, but your core images are you. They're the basis from which your actions flow, from which your knowledge comes. And I think this is just, a moment that, we talked about the wind being blown and having choices. I think this is a moment to kind of come back again, feel the rain, feel the wind, and let it come into you, and just settle and think about how what's going on is affecting you at your core. You don't have to change it, right? You don't have to rebuild things. Just what's it saying? What is this new information telling you in this moment? And how do you feel it? Right? I mean, we come down to the feelings layer. How do you feel it? How does it feel in your heart, in your gut? What's the interaction, right? What's the resonance? What's the dissonance? Like what's happening? Like just experience that. Just experience that.
Let's get your card.
Let's get my card. Let's see. All right, we got one. We needed it. So we've got the 4 of seeds. So we've gone down to the root chakra. 4 of seeds. The cupboard can only hold so much harvest. The cupboard can only hold so much harvest.
I think we had this many episodes ago. That sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, I believe we did. So this is the 4 of pentacles, 4 of coins in some people's versions of the tarot. And it's a moment of fullness for you, but it is not the end of your journey. It's just, this is a moment of fullness. And it's a reminder that in this case, that you can only hold so much. You can only keep so much money, so much treasure, so many thoughts, so many ideas. There's a limit to what you can hold, and you need to share. You need to give away the excess.
This, for me, going back to the context card, sounds like a reminder that when you are in a position like this, when you have this excess, this is specifically when you should be looking for people who have wisdom and knowledge or informed opinions about what to do with that. The way in which this can feed back into a community, for example, because that first card was about wood intersecting with water. So if you have this great excess, what are you going to do with it? How can it flourish best? You cannot presume to know that yourself, all by your lonesome. You should definitely remember that there are people who are working in whatever it is you're interested in helping and finding out what they need. So what I have found sometimes is that people just kind of throw money around without understanding how it's going to be used or what's actually needed. There's an international organization, I think it's called heifer.com or something. And the idea is that when you give them money each month, they buy livestock and give it to poor people. And that sounds like a really, really great idea. But if you research that organization, what ends up happening is they give these animals to these poor people who need something, but they don't give them anything else. So they may not have any feed and then the animal starves to death, or maybe they don't have anywhere to house it and it gets stolen. Any number of problems arise from them dumping these animals on these poor people around the world who do need help and would accept help, but some of them aren't even farmers, and you give them 10 chickens. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do with 10 chickens? So the spirit is giving, the hand is misguided. So when you're in a position of having this abundance, I would urge you to reach out to people who are experts in various areas and ask them what they need and how to help. Don't just presume to know because you've got whatever this resource is that you can just throw it and it will. What are these seeds that you just throw these seeds out on the ground? They'll just grow.
Well, I think you've brought to the head too, and even not just experts. Like you could talk to the people and be like, "What do you need?" what do you need right now? What is it? Is it a warm meal that you need right now? Do you need $20 to get to where you're going so that you can do something better for your life? Do you need a interview outfit? Like, what do you need? And letting that guide you. So like the reason that I use the word harvest here is of course because of the seeds, and there's the whole metaphor of the root chakra is harvesting, growing, reaping, sowing. All of these things kind of flow into it, but the idea here is like your harvest is not the end, it's the beginning. So what did we harvest? What can it be used for? Where does it go from here? You happen to have a lot of your harvest, but maybe it needs to be translated in some way to be useful. So did you harvest cotton? Does it need to be refined? Does it need to be changed? You harvest corn. Well, okay, so what do do they need the husks? Do they need the fruit? What do we need from this? Like, yes, I have a harvest, but that's just raw materials.
Yeah, it's an interesting image because, they would, when they would harvest fields, they would put a certain amount of the seed aside for replanting. And it reminds me of what you're discussing right here is how do you take that supposed excess, which needs to keep, creating abundance, and how do you use it effectively? Because if you use up everything, then you have nothing left for the next harvest. You have nothing for the next sowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a interesting reminder to kind of hold here, because if we translate it right into the larger reading where we're talking about loving what's coming in and being open to things, I think metaphorically there is only so much you can personally hold, right? There's only so much philosophy that you can hold. There's only so much information that you can hold. Like you have only so much energy, but if you have an abundance of it, like we have an abundance of it, you and I, we have lives where we can do this. We can sit down on Saturday mornings and talk about philosophy and science and religion and faith. We can have these conversations, and it's our abundance, and we're sharing it. So we are blessed in that regard, that we have the time and the resources. Like I'm using $1,000 of equipment right now, and you're using about 300.
Mm-hmm.
No, more. It was more about 500 because of the cloud lifter. I mean, that's abundance in its way. And, do I think that people listening to this need this? Like this is the same thing as helping poor people? No, I don't think so. But I think it is helping people. And being open to knowledge does not mean that you have to be drowned in it either, right? You don't have to be overwhelmed by it. And you don't have to know everything to share either. I think that's why this card came up. You don't have to have all the money to share money.
And that leads right into what I was going to say about taxes, because what you were talking about was reminding me of taxes. And I pay my taxes. I'm not bitter about paying taxes. I don't necessarily care about so much with the way they're being used. But when you think about those who have larger pools of wealth, who do everything they can to hide it or keep it or scrounge it or, whatever, it's like, I don't understand the attitude of not wanting to pay back into the system that allowed you to succeed in the first place. That doesn't make sense to me. Now, I'm not saying that it should impoverish you to do so, but at the same time, with some of these people, even if they did pay 90% tax, they'd still have more money than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the way in which abundance is shared, I wish that people would do it from a more open heart and with a sense of generosity, because even that repays itself as well.
Well, I have my book, which we talk about more in the member segment, but I'll bring it up here very briefly just to say that the one that I'm working on now is about a small town where everybody supports everybody. It can't happen everywhere. Like it in an agrarian society to a certain point can be self-sustaining. But even this town has to deal with outside forces and needs things like they can't make their own cars, right? Like they're an agrarian society. They can't necessarily make all of their own tools. There's just, it's not as self-contained as we want to pretend that it is. However, there is a theme in my stories of the community helping the community, and everybody comes together and harvests together, even if you're not a farmer. Like you come when it's harvest time, everybody comes to the fields and harvests and gets it done. Yeah. And that's kind of, another idea of abundance of you have of your time is an is this form of abundance. You have to give of your time. You have to give of your mental capacity, helping solve problems or think through problems, even just helping guide people through a solution, like facilitating. That doesn't sound like much, but sometimes, a group needs a facilitator to get through things. The facilitator doesn't know the answer. That's not their job. Their job is to help the group come to an answer. And that can be hugely valid because that answer could feed millions. And the facilitator just kind of helped it along. And it's another kind of abundance.
The facilitator kind of fulfills the function of what's happening in the context card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we're ready for our last card.
Okay. Going back to deck number 2.
All right.
Watch my scan. Watched.
Rolling. It's under the mic.
31.
Yeah, that 50-sided die must be hard to read. I don't know that I would be as good at it. And that's a lot of little numbers.
There's one number on it that's not in the same font, and every time I see it, it just irritates me because all the others are like in a sans serif font, but this one number, where is it? It's in a serif font, and I don't understand why. It just really irks me. I can't, of course, now that I'm looking for it, I can't find it. And there it is, number 40.
Of course.
Of course, it's you, number 40.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a designer working too late. All right, so we've got deck number 2, number 31. So we're close to Anahata, right?
No. Well, I mean, we're one level up. We're in Vishuddha.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Vishuddha, Aqua, Air, I say, and how it's impacted by Purple, Crown, Akasha, I know. So the way in which you communicate is influenced by the way you experience your morality or sense of purpose. I profess that I say contemplative words concerning my place in the universe. I profess that I say contemplative words concerning my place in the universe.
We definitely have a high chakral reading, right? We've got the upper 4 chakras all represented. We did bring in the root, right? I did have the root there for a second. But I mean, the reading is taking us, into the higher energy areas. I don't even like that terminology. Higher energy. Like why is the root low energy? Maybe the root has a lot of energy. Frequency, I guess, is probably what they mean is frequency, higher frequencies. Which are interesting too, because they have higher overtones. So, yeah, it's confusing because it's impossible to talk about, and yet we have to have words to talk about it. So, this is a tough concept. This is a very tough concept. Again, getting back to that I know area, that connection with whatever else it is there, right? Whatever it is beyond us. We have many conceptions of it, but we just don't know. And yet there it is. I know.
And yet there it is. I know. And it's an interesting form of I know because it's I accept. Maybe that's a better way to describe it than it's not quite I believe, and it's not quite I have faith. It's acceptance. I accept. So I know that one day I will die. I accept that it is not the end.
Mm-hmm.
So with this card, I profess that I say contemplative words concerning my place in the universe. Well, we're already doing that, but to be more specific within the context of the reading, this is part of an ongoing conversation about learning and loving the process of learning. This is perhaps a reminder to have conversations, sometimes with yourself, sometimes with others, about what it means to be a human being and what that entails and why. So here we are. It's where we are is, the right at the end of the first quarter of the 21st century in the United States, and looking at all the context that we're swimming in. What is my responsibility? What is my purpose in all of this? And I would have to say that one of my purposes in the universe right now is to simply resist. That's part of what I'm here to do, is to be a voice that says no. Because too many people have said yes to a lot of stuff that I don't agree with. And so I can add to that growing tumult of no, because you can't always say yes.
We were in a leadership meeting and we were talking about palliative care. And one of the things that doctors have to do, especially with cancer, is talk about how you want to die. Mm-hmm. And it's unique because a lot of people don't know when they're going to die. And a lot of people don't know that it's soon. Like we can count it in weeks, perhaps. And we were talking about how do we get better about these conversations, because we don't want people to die in the hospital, and with where it's not, that's not the care that we're providing. And we want them to have the kind of death that they want to have. And it's a very interesting, very tough conversation. And it kind of moves me every time it comes up. And it's one of the things that we're looking at, in what we are doing. But yeah, it's, I speak contemplative words, like you said, you have some knowledge, and it's when you gain more knowledge, when you gain foresight, does it make it better or easier? I don't know. I just, I've never been there. My mom died suddenly, so she didn't know. I didn't know. There was no knowledge of it. It just happened, and it obviously it wasn't easy. But it raises a lot of questions for people that do know, and that's interesting. Our mortality is why we have religion, right? Religion exists because we're these thinking creatures, and conceiving of nothing is impossible.
No, that's why we can know we will die and know that it's not the end.
And that's a very interesting thing. And I happen to be very existentialist. So I have a hard time with, eternity or, the cosmic ocean. Like my rationalness, right? My rationality, it says, well, I mean, there's really no evidence, right? There's really, like, the most likely thing is nothing, right? Like that's if you just take science, right? If you just take known, I'm putting quotes around known things, there is very little chance of there being anything other than nothing. And it's just interesting that like this final card, there's a lot that you can take in, and there's a lot of things. Like I said, there's only so much you can hold. Like, there's only so much. I think this is where the existentialists got tied up. Like, there's only so much truth that you can try to acquire and still be able to function, and still be able, and that's like their existential dread that they all faced with themselves, and they all tried to confront in their various ways, is almost overwhelming.
Well, this is a question of awareness, and we, as mortal beings with our brains and our senses, cannot be aware of everything. We're not built for it. Mm-hmm. We cannot perceive all the frequencies of light. We cannot hear all the vibrations of sound. We cannot smell very much compared to other animals. We can't fly. We don't live all that long in the great scheme of everything. So when we talk about awareness and enlightenment, I'm not sure we even understand what we're aiming toward. And so it might be that, yes, there is nothing, but what if nothing is everything? And the reason we can't conceive it is because we're not built to. Mm-hmm. That the great quote unquote nothing is actually a surge of everything, and our little computers just puff out because we can't process all the information. Or maybe there is truly nothing, and you won't be aware of it, so that's okay, but we come back to awareness again. There are people who believe in reincarnation, but if you're only aware of the life you're in right now, it doesn't really matter. This is the one that you got. Even if you do have hundreds, it doesn't matter. This is the one you know. So awareness is a small cup, and we fill it up with a lot of distraction. And I don't know that the answer is to try to have a bigger cup, because we're little kids. We have sippy cups. Mm-hmm. We are little children in the universe. We're little bebés. And all we're equipped to do is have sippy cups.
I think that's probably a sign of enlightenment, which is, I think a lot of people try to get the bigger cup. Like, I think existentialists and scientists are always searching for a bigger cup. Mm-hmm. They want the theory of everything. They want it to all make sense. They want to have all the math worked out, and very complex, and interconnected. And it's a beautiful idea of a tapestry of knowledge like that. Like that's mm-hmm. a beautiful idea. But I think, go back to the Zen koans, and I think they're like, I just need a thimble. Like if you get the right thimble, that's all you need.
Yeah, if it's got the right information in it.
That's and that, I think, is the road to enlightenment, perhaps. So
I like that, because the best wine I've ever had in my entire life was a 150-year-old Royal Port, and it was so exquisite. It was so exquisite that 15 years later, I can still remember all the sensations I had from it. And the person I was with knew the sommelier, and they gifted us each like maybe a dram. Not a shot, not a serving, just like a dram, because this is like $1,200 for a serving. So this is a big favor. But you know what? There was more happening in that little itty bitty sampling of that wine than there's been in like all the other wine I've ever had. Mm. It's like this wine, this teeny tiny little volume of wine, it was telling me stories. Mm. And it had it resonated on the palate for minutes. A lot of times the finish will last for a good 20, 30 seconds. That's a nice, bold finish. I could still taste it minutes later. It took an hour to drink that dram, because it was like, it had so much volume. It was like chewing on buttered cinnamon raisin bread. It's like you couldn't just drink it. You needed to really pace yourself. And with the thimble full of the right kind of essence, you don't need any of the other. So instead of looking for bigger cups, maybe what we should be looking for is better elixir.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it right there. I don't think we need to say any more. We have a members only Patreon. It's patreon.com/Dean Sage Media, all one word. you can go there and support us. You can get the access to the extended episodes where we talk about how the reading influenced us and what we took away from it. So you can kind of hear our personal take. And we often talk about our lives and our creativity and other things that intermingle there. Our show has a YouTube. It's Show Your Deck on YouTube. You can see the pretty colors and cards that we're talking about on the screen. Our books and our decks are available at showyourdeck.com. And you can get a copy of Jack's book from Jack. My books are available on Amazon in print and Kindle Unlimited. And I also have decks, and Jack has decks through our distributor. So you can get a copy of the decks that we use on the show. Jack, where can we find you?
I am at 49 Haiku. So that's the number 4, the number 9, HAIKU. On the intrawebs, that would be 49haiku.com. And on Instagram, it is at 49haiku.
I am Dean Sage Media. Find me if you dare. Our show does have an Instagram that is grossly underused at the moment. It's at your deck. And we will say goodbye.